Dan's not here.
Hi, welcome to Cissy Boys.
Dan got coronavirus. Dan got COVID-19, and he didn't tell Matt at all. And Matt did not know Dan was coming until this morning.
Yeah.
It just seems like something you would tell. I mean, just in the comments, and I think most of you follow Dan. If you could just message Dan and just be like, hey, why would you not tell Matt that you had COVID? Dan's not even on prep. That's why he got COVID.
Yeah. Dan is not on prep. If you're on prep, then you don't have to get the vaccine.
You don't have to get the vaccine if you're.
Probably
That's not true.
Good.
That's not true at all. We don't
you have
support
to get it
that
twice
statement.
as much, actually.
You should get the COVID-19 vaccine and also get PrEP, but they're separate. They don't do the same thing. But if you get PrEP, you get a JFL audition. Did you know that?
That's true. That's how many people who are not funny are getting JFL auditions. JFL is the #1 comedy festival in the world?
Yeah.
/ America.
They just had auditions.
But it's in Canada.
They auditioned a small mouse who wears a vest and carries around a little suitcase. They auditioned a mandarin orange. They auditioned a glass of sparkling cider.
They had auditioned Shay Diaz from the Sex and the City reboot.
Yeah, they had that actor play a character.
Sara Ramirez. You're not on prep and you don't want to be on prep, or you do?
I think I see nothing to lose by getting on prep.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I have insurance, so I could just get it, and then it's just sort of one thing, and then if I end up, I guess the most specifically, getting fucked in the ass raw, then I can, just kind of live with ease.
Yeah, you can get syphilis and chlamydia and gonorrhea, which I've gotten all of those things, but yeah,
definitely.
You will not get HIV.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, listen, anytime you're taking a dick raw, you can't eat the apple on the air. You can't eat the apple on the air. Just throw it. Yeah, see, it's gone. Out of sight, out of mind. Don't even think about it. Can cats eat apples? They might lick it. There's cyanide in
PrEP
them.
is a pre-exposure drug. It makes it so you can't get HIV even if you want to. That's the purpose of PrEP. There was one that was called Truvada, and that one was affecting people's kidneys, but now what everyone uses is Descovy, and that's what I've been on for 4 years, and it has no side effects whatsoever.
Oh, and those are just different kinds of PrEP. So there's several kinds of PrEP.
Well, yeah, I think there's just Truvada and Descovy. There's now there is a immunization shot for PrEP, like where it lasts for 6 months, but it's like that seems really risky. Like, how do you even? I don't know.
Like, that's instead of taking a pill.
Instead of taking a pill, you can get like a shot once every 6 months. But I don't know. I guess that freaks me out because they're still like in like testing stages of it, and it's like, oh, I guess it didn't work.
Yeah.
And now you have HIV for the rest of your life. Also, did you know that straight people have higher numbers of HIV infections now than gay people?
I heard that started.
And so now they're like rapidly giving a shit about advancing like
very funny
research because they're like, oh wait, it's not just the gay people.
And that's why we have Magic Johnson to thank for straight HIV representation. That guy has had the cure for like the entire time.
Right. I feel like he had
time.
like his own lab that just developed his own safety.
And it's funny because you think about that and it sounds crazy to say, but it's like probably true. And like, I mean, I think at the time it's not even fucked up. Because you also think at the time it's like the government wasn't even doing anything. So it's like Magic Johnson was like, I'm sure he was like, I'm going to use my money to live because the government is not going to help me.
I'm sure it was actually very beneficial for the queer community in general for Magic Johnson to have it, to give some attention to it.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sure it was huge. There should be a whole documentary just on that.
I'm surprised there's not. I'm also surprised it hasn't come out that somehow he has not helped the progression of AIDS research. I literally feel like him as like one sole person having HIV, sorry, not AIDS, having HIV has to have like pushed shit to get fixed. Because to Ronald Reagan, one Magic Johnson is worth like millions of gay men.
Yeah. Well, he's black, so probably like 500,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it would still be less than
to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, to Ronald Reagan, Magic Johnson, I guess, would still be not as cool as like Wayne Gretzky.
Also, like, it seems like if you were a really good magician, you could just not get HIV.
Who?
Magic Johnson.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm
Dude,
sure
I
that
had
joke
so
has been
many-
made so many times.
I had so many jokes involving the word magic now that I remember. I never told them on stage, but they were just like one-liners that I wrote down where it was like, do you know Magic Johnson is short for Magician Johnson? And then I'd just be like, have you seen Magic Mike? Do you know it's short for Magician Michael? None of them really. It was just, you know.
Sometimes the simplest things are the funniest. I mean, that made me laugh, because it's so stupid, and because I know you're smarter than that. But it's kind of, you're putting on the persona of someone who is a moron.
Have you
like, you're putting on the persona of someone who like sat around all day and we're like, this is gonna kill.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I did that on stage, that's what I think when I write those jokes. I go, if I did this on stage, I'd be such a different person to like think that this is like, oh yeah, take this to the stage. Like I would be insane. But
it's pretty funny.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun. You know, have you ever heard of Antiweiß jokes? It's German word.
Antiweiß?
Yeah, it's like wise. I don't.
WEIS or something.
Yeah.
No.
It's but anti jokes. That was like more of a thing like early meme days.
Yes.
Where it's just a joke that's just purposely like not funny or stupid.
Yes.
So like Germans invented that like hundreds of years ago. And it's the same exact thing, but like one of the examples of the jokes is two men walk across a bridge, one falls in the water, the other is named Helmet. And that's all it is. It's just, well, one falls in the water, and then the description of the other guy is his name's Helmet.
I love it.
And that's it.
It honestly is very have you ever seen the movie Kung Pao?
Wait.
It's not politically correct. I watched it a lot.
You're telling me Kung
child.
Pao is not an authentic movie?
It is it's a like kung fu film.
Okay.
And a white guy, Bob Odenkirk.
Oh.
No, not Bob Odenkirk. Sorry, Steve Odenkirk. Similar but different. This is not the guy from Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad.
Is this the movie where they like
he green screens himself into an entire Chinese film,
and they take another film and like dub over?
Yeah, so
and
there is
they
a
say
full
funny
film,
stuff.
and then he green screens himself into it, and then he dubs over everyone talking.
And he has long
does all
brown.
of the voices.
He has long brown hair.
Yes,
Kind of. Yes, I have seen that movie.
Okay, I used to watch it on repeat as a child.
Yeah, no, Sam showed me it, and it's like just like consistently every moment like the dumbest movie you've ever
There's
seen.
like a scene. I mean, a lot of it is just like making fun of the translation or whatever. Like, there's this like a scene where it's like, the main guy goes up to like this bodyguard and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go into that temple," and the bodyguard goes, "Okay."
Yeah.
And like it's just like they're. Oh wow.
Oh God.
Okay. Wow, we really should not do this podcast without Dan, or I would love to see.
I was just thinking about how much longer it's gonna be. Oh God, we haven't started recording yet, right?
No, we have. This is by far the worst podcast
We've been
ever
recording
done.
for like multiple minutes.
Did you think we weren't
God.
recording?
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
This isn't the worst podcast we've ever
There's
had.
also a scene in Kung Pao where he's like,
the best
it's that scene where it's that typical like throwback or like flashback to the past where he's like, he told me I had great potential, and then it goes to the flashback and it's a guy and he just goes, "You have great potential." And then he told me that I would be a champion one day, and then it flashes back and he's like, "You will be a champion one day."
Right.
And then he goes, "And then he killed the dog." The guy just lets out like a massive fart, and you just hear a dog in the background go, "Arr!"
Right.
Anyways, yeah, you just killed the dog.
Oh, I almost feel like I've heard other people say that.
You've killed the dog?
Yeah, killed the dog in reference to like a fart.
I don't know, but it sounds like something people would say.
I feel like when Dan's not here, I'm allowed to fart for a really long time.
You're allowed to fart, and you're allowed to drink alcohol, and we're allowed to talk about world wars.
We're allowed to talk about world wars and girls. We're allowed to talk about girls, and we're allowed to have a lot of fun.
I went to WiSpa.
Yeah.
I've never been. It was my first time going there.
Dick
I went
City.
with my boyfriend, and he loves going to spas, and it was great. And we went into like all the different tubs whenever. It was wonderful. There are like seedy spas in LA that are specifically for gay men to like be
Flex.
nasty. No. Like literally, it's like people giving hand jobs in the steam room and things
I thought
like
that's
that.
like what Flex was.
Oh,
Flex,
I thought
the gay spa.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like because I was like they're specifically for guys too, and then you said flex. Like I thought you meant like, it's for guys to like show off their muscles or something.
I guess sometimes in some ways, but
sure.
have you been to those places?
I went to Flex one time when I was really fucked up, and all I did was like swim in the swimming pool, and then I went into one of the back rooms, and I saw someone I know giving head to probably an 80-year-old man who looked like Jabba the Hutt.
Oh,
And yeah, and then he looked up at me and he was like, Matt? And I was like, I'm gonna go.
it's kind of crazy he'd even say your name. I just feel like he would just look at you and he'd register and he'd just be like,
they were both clearly on meth. Like they were both methed out. He was very embarrassed.
dude.
And then I
that guy's
never
80
have
on meth.
I mean, the next time I saw him, he was like, hey, and I was like I'm not judging you, like that's fine or whatever, but I could imagine how he felt like being so embarrassed. You know, you're like in this seedy dungeon giving head to like probably the ugliest person I've ever seen in my life.
I guess that's what he's into.
I don't think so. I think he was just on drugs. Like meth is like you're gonna do things that you probably won't usually do.
What? On meth?
Yeah.
I've thought of going to those places. I just always feel like I'm just gonna show up and I'm just gonna be like, all these guys are ugly.
Every time I go, everyone is ugly.
Yeah, I definitely don't like. I would almost have to get lucky that there'd be some other like guy like me that's like, I guess I'll try it out, and then that guy I could also just not be attracted to him, and I'm like, well, then this whole thing is a strikeout.
Yeah, I guess you have to think like if you're willing to go there, then other people like you are also willing to go there.
Yeah,
it's just a timing thing, I guess.
I guess if I didn't think anyone was attractive, maybe I would just walk around with a hard on for a little while, and then just
decide to have a hard on.
The moment could still be exciting enough.
Okay.
Everyone just walks around naked, right? Pretty much, or like in a towel.
Yeah, sure.
What is it? Yeah, sure. Does that mean yes? Or
I went one time and I was fucked up.
what were you fucked up on? Meth?
No. Alcohol and cocaine.
Oh.
Which I haven't done coke in years now, and I don't miss it at all.
And you were by yeah, that's good. You were by yourself?
Yeah, I actually think I was like a guy messaged me on an app and was like, meet me there. And then I got there and then we like swam in the pool for a little bit. And then I was like, I'm going to go home. Because I think he wanted to like have sex in the pool. And I don't know. It was a lot. Also, having sex in a swimming pool is very difficult.
I also feel like if I was there and then I met some dude and I was fucking him, part of the way through, I would just be like, I understand the thing that we're like out and stuff, but at the same time, we could have just done this at one of our homes.
Yeah, I guess there's like a novelty in it, and it's kind of fun to be in a place you're not familiar with.
Yeah. I just feel like it would just so easily turn into just like you could be sucking some guy's dick, and then all of a sudden there's just like 5 of the grossest people you've ever seen around you. And you're like,
sure.
I understand that this is a part of it, but because there's just such like small subtleties of like, oh, like I'll go to a spa and I'll suck a guy's dick in public, but then you could easily just be like, but I don't really want all these fellas crowding us, possibly planning to come on me.
I think that is kind of the excitement of it, though. It is
exactly
like voyeurism.
You kind of have to be down.
Expositionism.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting if a group of fellas watched me suck a guy's dick.
You could definitely make that happen.
Yeah, easily, right?
Yes, very easily.
I think I'm like I don't know. I think I'm like more afraid of sex lately. I don't know why.
Because you're not on prep.
Because I'm not on prep. But I always go on Grindr and then I'm just like a tease.
Oh, sure.
Like I start conversations and we plan to meet up and then I just kind of don't get back to them. And like that's not cool.
Yeah. My boyfriend and I were not on the apps, and I'm like I haven't been since September, since we started dating, and I'm like the happiest I've ever been in that regard. It's really a buzzkill.
Yeah, Grinders, it's not really that fun.
Also just like a giant, it's not even like getting on there and talking to people is bad, but it's like such a time suck. Like you waste so much time and it totally redirects your brain. Cause like, you know, like sexual like hormones is like such a powerful, it's like, oh, this will take over my life. Like I heard someone talk about being in, it was like someone who's like a prominent figure, and they were people always ask them if them and their wife are open or like, you know, if they're like swingers. And he's like, I have a lot of friends who are swingers and who are open and stuff. And he's like, I'm not opposed to it ideologically or whatever. Like, I have nothing against choosing to do that. But he said, there's so much in my life that I want to do that we've decided not to, just so that we can participate in other things.
Yeah.
Because like once you open that door, it becomes like a full-time.
It's such a bad idea.
It becomes a full-time job where you're like, oh, okay, wait, I can have sex with whoever with my partner. Like, let's like fucking go. And then it's just like truly a full-time lawyer. You need like a secretary to organize everyone's schedules and like how do you make sure it all works out and everyone thinks the other person is it's a nightmare.
The thing I don't understand totally about that is like it's almost the assumption of like, oh, well, like, you know, it's like you just have the option to just sort of meet someone randomly at some time. It's like, how often are you fucking like that? How often are you just sort of like walking around and being like, well, I just found some. Like, I guess you can go to bars, but like, especially in like straight relationships, it's like most women aren't just going to be like, hey, here's this guy that I've never met at a bar. I'm going to go home with him within 2 hours of meeting him. Like, it's not like that doesn't happen. It happens, but it's not like a lot of times nowadays when people fucking meet up, it's like off an app or like there's usually like days of talking for some point. I mean, but then if you want to hop on Grindr, you could fuck a guy pretty quick. But my point being, it's like, it just takes effort. It's not really like this free-flowing idea of like, well, you know, just like any. Like, if I was in a relationship, I would immediately, and they wanted to do that, it would just become like a competition for me. So I don't have the.
I think it's the most fun if you don't have that in mind. So like, if it presents itself, then it's like, oh, that's cool. But there is like, you know, there's that stereotypical like meme where it's like, hey, me and my partner saw you from across the bar and we thought you were really interesting. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That like pitch that like couples give to like a sad, desperate single person.
Yeah.
And
I see that is different though if you're doing it at the same time.
But there is like a vibe to it where it's like, oh, you guys don't like each other enough to just hang out together, or like, but at the same time, like, so I think in my mind it's like more fun if it's if it just happens organically. Like if you go and enjoy yourselves and then something like pops up, wonderful. But if you're Dan Donahue, you can just have a comedy show and have a guy come up to you and say, hey, I would like to watch you and your girlfriend have sex.
Yeah, exactly. There's certain people that like that could work for. Because like I think like Dan and his girlfriend are both like just good looking enough people that they could probably fluently just fuck people all the time. But like if I'm with some lady, like I got a crush on this girl right now and it's consuming my mind. It's terrible. But if we dated, she's so much more attractive than me. Which, not saying that I'm just saying in this, like, she's so much more attractive to me that if she was like, do you want to open up the relationship? I'd be like, you could just fuck all the time, though. And, like, I cannot just sort of, like, have sex with anybody at all, you know, at all times. I'm not, like, a hot ticket item.
I think people think that you're, like, you are a handsome guy. I know you weren't, like, fishing for compliments, but you're not, like, you are objectively attractive.
Well, thank you. But you just think about...
And I would like to have sex with you right now.
Okay, well, that makes me feel good. You also, I think you just think more about just, like, heterosexual dating and stuff, where it's like, even an attractive guy, it's still, like, few and far between that you would necessarily just be out in public, and then a woman would come up and be like, hey, what's up? But, like, if you're a lady and you go to a bar, you just have tons of guys just coming up like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up?
But also, you're pansexual. If I was the woman, I would be way more insecure because you could literally suck someone's dick in 30 seconds.
Yeah. I like the idea of polyamory if I was with a woman and she was like, I want to have sex with people other than just cis men. Then I'd be like, oh, okay. I just can't provide that to you. So that makes sense. But like if it's a thing where it's like, I just want to have sex with other men, I also understand that it's completely different. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but like, you know.
She's like, I would also like to go to dinner with them, and I would also like to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I would also not like to date you.
Yeah. And then that's what I don't get is you hear polyamorous people, they're like, my husband has a crush on someone right now. It's so cute. And I'm like, okay, like, I guess you're evolved or whatever, but you really want, like, to look at your partner, just be like, oh, my God, this person's so cool. And it's like, they don't, like, what? I don't know. I like rules. I guess I just like rules. Like the because when people are like, oh, monogamy is so stringent, I'm like, that's why it's like nice, because you're like making an agreement with someone of like, oh, we like each other enough that we're just going to choose to, keep our sexual things just with each other. And then also it's like, I feel like if you stay monogamous and communicate enough, you can just have like wilder and better sex, which wouldn't fulfill everything. But it's also like, why don't you focus more on your personal sex life? Because all you got to do is just have a couple conversations, and you're like, oh man, you like ass stuff? We never even talked about that. And then that's, a whole new
when I opened up that can of worms, I was like, hey, boyfriend, you like ass stuff? Who knew?
Right. You were like,
I've
what?
been having sex with your vagina this whole time.
This is crazy. What's been going on?
I don't know. I think it works both ways, but also like something that I've come to learn is from talking to other couples. In my mind, it was always like, you're either open or you're not open. And if you're open, that means anyone can do whatever they want. And if you're not open, that means no one, like, you're just monogamous.
Yeah.
But we've kind of been like asking different couples how they do things, and like, it seems like a lot of people, it's very touch and go, where it's all situational. It's not like,
I hope so.
and I think it's healthy that you would still kind of feel jealous or like somewhat protective of your partner, and it's like kind of a nice feeling.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way you
it's not just like I can fuck whoever I want and he can fuck whoever he wants. It's like we can talk about stuff if we want to do that, but it's going to be like case by case.
Oh, so you're kind of saying like, well, it's on the table, but it's not like we feel the need to eat it.
Yeah, right now
sort of
we're
on the
just
table.
doing we're open to hooking up with people together, but like literally my best friend texted me because like we were trying to like be progressive and be like, we think like free love is great and this is how we're supposed to be in this progressive culture, and then we both kept feeling like shit, and my best friend texted me and she was like, hey, are you guys gonna keep doing that thing where you keep hurting each other, or are you just gonna be monogamous for a minute?
Nice.
And I was like, oh, that's the most simple way of putting it. Like, okay,
very
yeah,
cool.
we should just chill out.
Yeah. Do you think like queer people have like, I guess specifically gay men would have like an easier time with polyamory because it's like you've already had to like understand a sexuality that's like not the standard, where it's like you already have the thought of like, well, like, I mean, like it's not all just like this box, this box, this box. I've had to, come into my own sexual. Yeah, right. Like,
yes, I think the reason that I'm no longer an evangelical Christian is because I had to question societal norms, because I was like, oh, everything works for me in this group except who I want to live my life with and who I would like to have sex with, and then why is that an issue? And then it made everything else fall apart. So the idea of it is like makes a lot of sense. Like, why would we have ownership over anyone's body and all that stuff? But at the core of it, like, we are humans, and we have very strong feelings, and we're very fragile.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not a progressive person if you want to be monogamous.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like politics that people try and insert into like sex, and I think it's like sometimes like too much, because like there are definitely some cases where like your preferences are indicative of like issues. Like if a person's like, oh, well, I would never have sex with a black person, you're like, well, that's more than a preference. That's like you're no black person ever. It's like that's just like you're just being racist at that point. But like if there's, I just think it's weird when people are like, oh, like you don't like polyamory. It's like, well, then I guess you love imperialism. Like,
right.
Well, that's a jump. Like that's a lot different than the first thing I said. But yeah, I don't really have like a solid, because it's all just preference. So it's like I obviously don't have like an end all be all argument for polyamory. But I do know that at least me personally is definitely I would just not enjoy it.
I also like something I was talking to my boyfriend about is that I, for some reason, saying the word boyfriend sounds like I'm bragging every time I say it.
Because you're so excited and you're happy.
I told him like I am a recovering slut, and he was like, yeah, I think every gay guy is kind of a recovering slut. Like, I'm used to having sex whenever I want with whoever I want.
Yeah.
I get to do what I have no boundaries, but not that I have no boundaries, but it's like I don't have to. I can do whatever I want.
Right.
And so entering a relationship, whereas I don't think straight guys necessarily, for the most part, like are on a similar vibe page because the power dynamic is different with women.
Right.
But with guys, it's like guys are horny monsters, and sure. So now, like, going
open.
from doing whatever I want, whenever I want, when someone wants to hook up with me, to I need to take someone else's feelings into consideration. This is the worst spot. You're farting, I'm burping and coughing.
I think this has been
Dan would lose his mind.
I think this has been good.
I can't seem to clear my throat. But yeah, I have to take someone else's feelings into consideration, and honestly, it makes me feel a little like I don't know. There's like something that is really sweet about like changing my mindset with that, where I was like, oh, what are like? It's a way to like. I know that this would make my partner feel more valued.
Yeah.
And, like, obviously, I could have the conversation, be like, hey, would it be okay if I had sex with this hot guy while you're busy at work? And I could ask him that, but I know that I might be able to twist his hand into saying yes, but I do think that it would make him not feel valued.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, it's better for me to just like wait till he feels valued.
Yeah. It's always just weird to me when people are like, I don't care at all. I think if I was in a relationship though, and then a person, like, I always think about this, like if I was in a relationship and they're like, oh, I met this celebrity, can I have a pass and I can fuck them? I would, like, in my head, I like to think that I would just be like, you can fuck them, but I wouldn't want to date you any longer. But feel free and go ahead and fuck them. But I am telling you right now that I can't date you.
Do you know that comic who, the one who kept calling Bobby Lee out on stage? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Did you hear her story that she kept telling at open mics about... I'm just going to tell the story. It's so psycho and so unfunny. But we're at the improv mic that was on the patio. Did you ever go to that when COVID just ended or whatever? I did too. That's how I got into the New York Comedy Festival. The rep was there watching the stupid mic.
Shit.
And I was like, wow, cool. I did well and no one gives a shit. And then she's like, hey, I'm an important person. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Everyone gives a shit.
So this girl gets up, and this is like some like very outspoken feminist, like which, you know, I guess technically all of us are feminists, but like someone who finds our identity in doing that and like calling people out on cancel culture, whatever. And so she gets on stage and she's like, okay, so this is so crazy and it's true, and this is like what I'm going to spend my entire 5 minutes talking about on stage.
It's also like a 3-minute mic, right?
Yeah, she went over. And then she was just like, okay, so a friend of mine like had sex with a really famous celebrity, and like she has a boyfriend, but she had sex with this really famous celebrity, and she was like, you know, it doesn't really count in my mind because he's so famous, and I can't tell you guys who, and all of us are like, literally no one gives a shit. Like, she's like, I can't tell you, let's just say Brad Pitt. It's not Brad Pitt, but I can't tell you who, and it's like, no one cares. We live in LA, like, who cares? Yeah. And so she's like, so she had sex with this guy, and then later that night she went home to her boyfriend, and her boyfriend felt her vagina and could feel that it was stretched out. So he was like, did you cheat on me? And then,
she didn't even tell him first.
No, she didn't tell him. And then she said, this is her telling the story. She goes, and so my friend told him that celebrity raped her so that she wouldn't get caught cheating.
See, that's the level to where, like...
And that, like, this is her telling the joke, and she's like, can you guys believe it?
Right.
Like, isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
And I was like, you're a moron.
Yeah.
Also, she was like, okay, it's too far for you guys. It's too far. And I was like, it wasn't too far at all. It's that you did not tell a single joke, and you just told us how your friend lied about being raped, and we're supposed to think it's funny, which maybe you could make that situation funny. I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities for a joke there. You just didn't write a joke. Yeah. No one was upset that you told that. I'm upset that you told that story because you wasted 4 minutes of my goddamn life. Right. And it was so uninteresting. And no one gives a shit who she had sex with. Will Smith. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's like, that's the level to where like very like heteronormative monogamy is bad. Like when you are lying about getting raped by celebrities to
avoid
stay
your
with
partner
your
finding
boyfriend.
out you're cheating.
That's a point where, you know, maybe have a conversation. I always think it's interesting is like I understand the premise of the idea, but at the same time, if someone was like, oh, can I fuck them? They're famous. I'd be like, is that all it takes? Is like somebody just needs to be famous, and then you're like, oh, I'll fuck him. Like if it was the same guy and he wasn't famous, you would like be fine to not fuck him. But since he's famous, you want to fuck. It's like, is that it?
Also,
that's all you need.
I when I was younger, I had sex with a couple people who are somewhat famous, and it always felt horrible. And in my mind, I was like, "This is so cool." Like I'm like 21. I'm like, "This is so cool." This person, you're like, "That was me 4 weeks ago," but you were 21.
Oh,
because you're 22.
I'm 22.
Damn. The good old days. You should be having sex with famous people. But then afterwards, I was just like, I was always like, oh, this feels shitty because I don't actually care about this person.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
But in my mind, it's like, what's gonna happen? Like, this is crazy. And then it's like, no, like that person's a human. They wanted to get off. You got off, and now you carry on with your lives. And now that person like is like, oh, that's that random person that I had sex with one time.
It doesn't make sense.
As if like if I actually cared about that person and like respected their work, I would have like maybe just had a conversation with them.
Yeah, it does. You don't have to fuck famous people just because they want to fuck you.
Yeah.
It also probably feels great.
Elton John, I'm sorry.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding.
It must feel great to like say no to a celebrity. If you were like, oh, cool. It would be great to just like if like Leonardo DiCaprio was like, so you want to go home? And you're like, nah. And then he would just be like, what? And then he would just go home and like just jerk off all sad.
No, he would call like one of his 45 prostitutes on demand.
He would do that.
Or go home to his 19-year-old wife or whatever he's doing.
Yeah. I'm definitely not fucking enough. I feel like there's a lot of like crazy sex that I'm just sort of choosing not to have. I think I'll regret it.
I think you have done pretty well so far in your life. I didn't have sex until I was 21.
Yeah, that is true. Things are going fine. Sometimes I think about that, like, crazy stuff, and then I just jerk off, and I'm like, I don't really know if I want to do that.
Also, there is something to be said about, like, are you I guess it doesn't really matter, but are you a millennial or are you Gen Z?
I'm Gen Z.
There's some, there's been like some study. Wow, this is very scientific and factual. Apparently, Gen Z is like not having as much sex as millennials do because they're like so introspective and like a little more empathetic and like socially conscious of like the effects that sex has on like our brains and things like that.
Yeah.
And you guys are just depressed because I guess the world is ending and you're all like Billie Eilish or something.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're like, I was born like 2 to 3 years before 9/11. So then it's just like my entire life, the war has been going on, and like everything's terrible. And that's just the same with. I mean, it's not like things were awesome.
Wait, when
before.
you probably were born like the year that Columbine happened?
99. I think Columbine was like 94, wasn't it? 97.
Yeah, it wasn't 94 because I remember it.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. So it's like I
wasn't there.
I think when you're born to that kind of world. But yeah, definitely. I just think about that a lot. Like I always go on Grindr. Like sometimes I'll be jacking off and I'll just go on Grindr, and then like I'm like, but then I come and I'm like, I don't really want to meet up.
Oh, it's the best feeling in the world when you just like decide to masturbate instead of having a weird stranger come over to your apartment and you waste an hour and a half of your life.
I do it all the time.
And you're like, okay, you can leave now because I need to continue doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Like I was like talking to a guy like, because I couldn't go to sleep last night. I was like talking to a guy like really late, and I was like, oh, maybe I would go over. And he lived like 4,000 feet away or whatever. But then I just jerked off.
That's a lot of feet.
Yeah. But then like that like you're gonna get there and then they're not gonna look as good as they did in their pictures, and then like you're just gonna do all that, and then you come and you're like, damn, we both did this just to hook up, and I honestly feel like I would have rather jerked off. And then sometimes I'm like, do I want to have that same feeling in like a spa with like 15 people around me?
Oh, like you have the come to Jesus moment while you're in the middle of a spa and you're like, what the did I just pay $40 to sit in a steam room when I could have just stayed home and like jerked off and then wrote jokes?
Yeah, but I mean, that being said, I don't think it's a waste of time. I think in some sense I would probably come out of that and be like, well, I'm glad I did it. You know what I mean? But
there is like, I have this like reporter brain, if you will, that is like somewhat like disconnected from reality, where I always want to experience everything, and anytime there's a possibility for a hookup, even if I'm not even that interested in it, I'm like, what is going to come out of this? I have no idea.
Yeah.
This could be that being said, like I've met some of my closest friends from like an original hookup, and then like we just turned into like very good friends and have never hooked up since then. But like it's been like a really cool connection, and I've met so many interesting people that way. That being said, also like I've had some of the most horrific experiences of my life.
Yeah, but that's like life. Like that's what you should have. And I've had like weird.
But it's just like, hey, it's kind of like gambling. It's like we're gonna throw the dice, and it's like maybe this person will be your best friend. Maybe you'll have good sex. Maybe this person is going to force you to smoke meth with them.
Yeah,
like you don't know what's gonna happen, and like it's kind of like.
Yeah, I had like a borderline insane experience on Grindr, but like I'm still like glad I had it. Where like, did I tell you about this? I like if I did. I don't think I've told in the podcast. I was talking to this guy on Grindr, and like he looked okay, and then he had a nice penis, and I was like, all right, cool, I'll go over. And then I go over, and he's like, oh, I'm in the shower, just come in. And then I walk through the door, and there's like a 10-year-old just doing homework in the dining room, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, is Henry here? And then he just looks at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then he's like, you just go in the room. I'll be out of the shower. And that annoyed me because I was like, you know I was coming over. Why are you doing the shower thing? And I'm like, and there's a 10-year-old. So already in my head, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do this. And then I walk into the room, and it's like painted.
Wait, did you talk to the 10-year-old? You said, is Henry here?
Yeah, and then he just looked at me. And I was like,
Did he not say anything?
Yeah, I was like, this is a smart kid. And already I was
that poor child.
Dude, exactly. And I mean, the place was I assume the guy had a roommate, and that maybe his roommate had a kid or something. I don't know. But I was just like, okay, I'm probably not going to end up doing this, but I guess I'm not going to leave right now. And then I walk into his room, and it's like painted terribly. And there's this big like metal pipe thing that's like a big square in the middle of his room. It's just like these like little beams connecting to each other, and there's nothing in the middle, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, is this like a sex swing? That's like, it looked like something that would be used for some sort of, like sex. And then there's also just like a TV that's way too high on the wall, and it's just playing gay porn, and I'm like, all right, this is like, why does your room look like a spa? Like, this is weird.
It sounds like it was a sling.
A sex sling?
Yeah.
What, is that different from a swing? Or did you say swing?
No, I said sling.
What is that?
A sling.
Slingshot?
It's like 4 pillars, and there's like a little like leather like sack that you can lay in, and you lean back and get fucked.
Yeah, there's nothing in the middle, but I assume there'd be something. But it also didn't look strong enough.
There was nothing in the middle. Oh,
that's why it was weird. I didn't get it. I
maybe he's an aspiring gymnast.
Yeah, but then there's a bathroom next to his room, and I was like, I guess I'll use a bathroom. And then I go in there, and I don't think anyone's in there, but I'm like, he said he was in the shower, and I was like, wait, let me look in the shower. So I just peel the curtain back just to make sure he's not there. And then I look in the shower, and there's like 10 to 12 dildos, and most of them are like this long, and they're like that wide. And like, I'm like very new into fucking dudes, and I'm like, this is not really where I'm at. I was like, this is a pretty different
You're
thing.
like, yeah, I'm not going to be gay.
And then he comes in, and then he came into the room, and I noticed immediately, and no disrespect to the lazy-eyed in there, but he has, I think, 2 lazy eyes, and they're like pretty aggressive, but he like, when he took the pictures, it was just when the eyes were not lazy. And I was like, I think if you have a lazy eye, you should take one with the lazy eye, just because it's pretty prominent, it's pretty noticeable, and you look like a completely different person. And then also he just looked not as good as in his pictures. And then he had these weird scars on his arm that were like, it almost looked like staff or something. And I was like, oh. And then at this point I'm like, I should leave. And then
he had a gun.
And he had a gun. And then we were like in bed. I think I took off my shirt. And then like before we touched, I was just like, and I just lied. It wasn't really how I was feeling, but I was like, I'm nervous and due to this, I'm gonna leave. And it was very scary to me. Because going from like fucking like women to dudes is you realize when you don't want to be there, you also worried about getting murdered. So like I was like, ooh, I'm gonna have to tell this guy no. I think he's fine, but I hope he doesn't get mad. And then
that's so interesting.
Yeah, and then he didn't, and then he didn't get mad. He was like, oh, and then he still kind of was like trying to be like, do you want to do that? And I was like, I'm just gonna go. And I was.
Do you want to watch scat porn?
Yeah, and I wasn't even like rude to him. I was just sort of like, I want to leave. And he was an odd guy, but also not the kind of guy that's like, you can't leave, which was good. But also in my head, I was like, I think I can fight this guy if I have to fight this guy. And then I got back in my car and I felt wonderful. I was like, God, it was so good not to do that. But I look back at that experience and I don't necessarily regret it. I think it's a fun story that I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting on multiple levels. There is like the best feeling I think in the world is when you leave a situation you don't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Because if you stayed for that situation out of guilt, it's almost like you're... I like struggle to say this, but it feels like you're self-inflicting assault.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Where it's like, I don't want to be here, but I'm going to do it so that I don't make the other person feel bad, but it is making me feel bad.
Yeah. And I think
technically you're consenting to it if you choose to be there, but it's like you're hurting yourself.
Yeah. And I think also it's like I have like sort of a privileged perspective with my sexuality because it's like I wasn't like I didn't really grow up thinking like, oh, I think I'm gay. Like I definitely had a lot of thoughts where like me and my friends would jerk off and shit. In the back of my head, I'm like, I think this is more than just guys jerking off. you know what I mean?
Multiple friends?
Yeah. We like jerk off around each other and stuff. And
are any of them gay now?
No.
See, yeah, I had a couple friends growing up, and we would jerk off together. But they're all straight guys.
Yeah,
I think, but it's just like
it's a thing because you want to show your penis to people.
Yeah. Also, you're just like really horny, and you're not really sure what the outlet is.
Right.
And for me, it was confusing because it's like, am I gay or do we just like? Because I know that guy legitimately likes women.
Yeah.
And I was like, are we just horny? Am I just horny? Like, is this just what being a teenager feels like?
Yeah. And I think, it's like, yeah. So then the only difference was I just sort of looked back on it and I was like, oh yeah, that was like hot, But I like when I realized that I wanted to fuck dudes, it wasn't even like a coming out thing. It was very like a straight dude just fucking dudes where I was like, oh, I could just do that now. And like my family didn't give a shit. Like they not only were like not really just supportive, like the future supportive where they're just like, okay. Like it wasn't even coming out. I just told them.
Right,
so I think
like, why do we need to know this?
Yeah, so I don't think I've ever really had a strong feeling in my head of like I have to go out and do these things so I can like affirm who I think I am. Like, of course I had that in some sense where I'm like, well, I can't be afraid to do these things. I have to do these things. But I've never like gone to the extent of like, I don't really want to do this, but I'm gonna do it because I have to, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think also like, I think maybe the Gen Z thing, and this is kind of a vague generality, but I think it kind of makes sense, where I think Gen Z more than millennials, and this is common with young people, I think Gen Z really thinks we have it figured out, where we're like, well, like, that's why, like, I think, like, when you were talking about, like, those sexual experiences that you had where, like, some of them were terrible and stuff, I think it's, like, Gen Z doesn't have the thing of, like, what's going to happen. Like, I think Gen Z is more like, well, I know what's going to happen because this is caused by this, and it's an expression of this, and that's why I'm not, where millennials are more just, like, well, like, they just seem more exploratory, I think. I think Gen Z is the most we have it figured out that young people have ever been.
I think that probably is true to some degree because the internet, that you guys actually do have it figured out.
And the internet.
But like, yeah, there's kind of like a Gen X is like, oh, we understand how the world operates. And then millennials are like, oh, everything we were told about how it operates is a fucking lie and we know nothing. And then Gen Z is like, now we know it's a lie and now we know how to use that information. Are we 45 in or less? Okay, cool.
The boring part is that, like, you can, like, just because you, like, read about something or know about something and in some ways know it's true, you still haven't experienced it. And it's like, that's life. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't, like, even, like, I could have a conversation about things that I haven't done that I, quote, like, know are bad. Like, meth, whatever. Not saying I should do meth, but if I did meth, then I would really know why you shouldn't do meth. You know what I mean? And I think Gen Z has the thought of, like, well, I know exactly what that's like. And it's like, it's the same thing.
I saw 7 TikToks on it.
Yeah, and it's the same thing when, like, Gen Z, like bags on celebrities where they're like, well, they may have this condition, but that condition, that's not an excuse for that. And it's like, well, it's not an excuse, but also, like, I don't support any of, like, Kanye West's actions right now with, like, the way he's terrorizing his family. But I also think, like, in the past, especially when he was, like, having a full-blown, like, month-long manic episode, like, unmedicated with no good people around him, I thought it was kind of cocky that a lot of Gen Z people were like, well, that's not an excuse. And it's like, okay, but it is a reason, because you don't understand that, like, mania makes people kill themselves. Like, mania makes people do insane things. And, like, you don't know that. And that's not an experience that you can try. But I'm saying, like, Gen Z, like, we just have this perspective, like, well, I've read about bipolar. And it's like, that's just a description of a collection of cases. And it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like you don't
totally.
know.
I think specifically with the, not that you're even meaning to talk about this, but with the Kanye thing, the upsetting part is like he should have close friends and family tell him that you need to get back on your medication, and it's not cute because we know that you're having a public breakdown and like you have every resource in the world to get healthy.
Yeah.
And you're choosing to be a fucking asshole.
Yeah, he is responsible. He's responsible for getting on his
But
meds.
it is helpful to know like, oh, he's not doing this because he's trying to be malicious, but he is just unmedicated.
Yeah, it's like he's making a choice to not help himself, but he's not necessarily like when he's in those fits of mania. It's like he's not necessarily making a choice to do everything he's doing. I've helped my friend through like several like mental episodes where she was like having delusions and like thought she was like talking to spirits and shit like that. And whenever she comes out of it, she's always so embarrassed. She's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did those things." And I'm like, "I'm not mad at you for the things you did. I'm mad at you that you didn't take action to take care of yourself before those things happened."
Yeah, totally.
I'm not judging you like, "Oh, I can't believe you had delusions." Like, way to go, idiot.
No, I mean, we have mutual friends where it's like, I'm not mad at you for behaving this way. I'm mad at you that you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah. It's like
because you know you could go to therapy or get on medication or fucking be sober until you figure your shit out.
Yeah. And they're like, well, you know, it's just so weird. It's like, no, don't get into the specifics of it. It's like, all that's fucked, obviously. But the problem is this. But yeah, I just think in general, Gen Z is like, we're not fun.
Case in point with what you're saying, so like, Greg and I talked about
doing meth together.
Yeah, and it rocked. No, we didn't. But we talked about this progressive idea of like, you know, we should like, you know, be able to do what we want to do, and that's fine. And like, so then he like called me and was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about having like sex with this couple," and I was like, okay, like, yeah, that makes sense because we both love each other and we want each other to do what we want to do. So he like goes to this person's house and I have to go to work, and the whole night I'm fucking spiraling and I feel like shit. And the whole time I'm working, I'm just like, wow, my boyfriend is getting pounded by some random or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm losing my mind over it. And so like on paper, it's like, I understand that not restricting my partner's body is the correct response and that he should be able to have free love. But then it's like, oh no, when you're actually in that situation, it's very different. And then I'm like, oh, I'm like a weird, jealous psycho bitch.
Mm-hmm. And you have to find that
but
out.
then like, you know, like we talked about it and all that stuff and we're trying to understand it, and I wasn't mad at him for anything. But I was like, oh, I feel like I'm trying to be cooler than I actually am.
Totally.
And I'm not that way. And it's because I think it's good because it shows that like I really love you, and I'm like, oh, I want to experience those things with my. Does that make sense?
Totally.
I mean, like on paper, it's like, of course that makes sense. And like, if I wasn't in that situation, I'd be like, wow, your partner sucks. Like they should really like they have a like hold on your neck, and you should really like they should go to therapy. Why are they jealous?
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, they're jealous because they're human and they like the special connection that you guys have.
That's like the kind of. Thanks. Just like I agree with like a ton of shit that like my generation's doing. I think for the most part we have like the right intentions in mind and stuff, but there also is the level where it's like it's fine to not be okay with some shit like polyamory. You know what I mean? It's like you're not like it's like because if we're talking about like being open and honest about that stuff, it doesn't mean just being like well like that makes the most sense, so like obviously I'm fine with it. Where it's like if it like it just it's a subjective thing. Where it's like polyamory doesn't make sense to you, so you don't have to like be cool with it just because you read, you know, The Ethical Slut or whatever. It's
have you read that book?
No.
Should we read it?
I think I should. I think I've heard it's enlightening.
Yeah, it's probably good. I'm sure it deals a lot with shame.
I also think like Gen Z, it's like you kind of grow up in a world where like I'm still old enough that like I still have a conception of like things before the last 6 years, you know what I mean? Like like early 2010s, like you remember like how the culture was so different.
Before Me Too, before BLM, before COVID.
Yeah, like shit was just like there was just fucking blackface and like rampant homophobia, like just constantly the butt of a joke and all that. So it's like I remember that concept, but at the same time, it's like I'm also growing up in a world where like shit has changed so much, and I think a lot of that shit is like almost not as exciting to Gen Z, where it's like like me being pansexual doesn't feel like taboo. You know, it's not like,
Yeah.
ooh, it's like this is a new crazy thing. Like in my mind, I'm just like, oh, you know, another one in the arsenal.
Which is also weird too, because it is, you know, whatever. We're in such a liberal bubble that, like, if you were probably in like some small town in Oklahoma, it would be a big deal. Which
I have
so
like
bizarre.
location privilege for sure. It's been much easier.
Sure, like coastal privilege.
Yeah.
Should we do gay, straight, pan?
What time is it?
Yeah.
Oh, 10 minutes left.
Dan is straight, and he got COVID, and that's a very straight thing to do.
He went to
You fucking idiot!
Fuck you.
Why would you go to Denver?
Why would you do this, Dan?
And do comedy so that you could get COVID? He knew that he was going to get COVID if he did it, but he was paid $50, and so he said, "Fuck it, I'll risk my life."
Do you
and
think
doing comedy for $50 in order to risk your life with a severe virus that has killed 1 billion people?
Dan knowingly went to Colorado with COVID and was paid $25 to do 3 minutes, and he gave COVID to 500 people. No, he got it. He didn't bring it there. He didn't have it when he was there.
He didn't?
No.
Oh, no, he didn't have it when he went there, but when he came back, he did.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah, that was very straight of him. Something gay that I did. Me and Greg went to Joshua Tree this weekend on Sunday. We went up to help one of my friends move. Oh my God, this is a whole can of worms. I just have 2 things to say, and it'll loop in.
That's okay. But you can say 3 things.
Okay.
But
we went to help my friend move like some stuff from her place in Joshua Tree to a new house she built. And that friend who I love and is so funny and so cool and is she's like a mom to me, sort of. She's like deep into QAnon conspiracy theories. And it's wild, and it's something that I like about myself, that I'm able to like maintain a friendship with her regardless of like the things that I disagree with that she believes. But outside of that, she's a very cool person, and it's a lesson to myself being like, she's not poly, but it's a lesson to myself being like, just because I don't agree with someone ideologically, like they, you know, this is a complex, dynamic, interesting person, and they have some misinformation, and also they're in their 50s, and like it is what it is. But I was like, tell me. I'm like sitting with Greg, and I'm like, so tell us what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. You know, like, as I'm curious, like, what's going on from her perspective. And she was like, right now, there are American labs in Ukraine, and they're developing the next virus for another lockdown.
Totes my
and
guts.
Putin is bombing Ukraine to take out those labs. And people think he's a dumb guy, but he's actually like a very smart guy, and he's taking out a lot of very bad people right now. And they're pretending that it's about this war, but he's actually preventing the next lockdown. And I'm like, whoa, like it's gone all the way full circle to where like now you like anyone who is in that subgroup of QAnon, whatever, follows that. And I asked her where she got her information. And of course she did a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what you say. And then she told us about how Michelle Obama is actually Big Mike, a transgender woman.
Oh, people still do that.
Yeah. She was like, duh.
That started like,
and I was like, wait.
Right when
I was like,
ran.
for real? And she's like, yeah, Google it. It's obvious. And she's like, look, it's irrefutable. There's a speech where Obama one time referred to his wife as Michael instead of Michelle. So obviously she's a transgender woman.
Obviously, yeah.
And I was like, and then she's like, and Obama's a prostitute. He's a gay prostitute.
Oh, okay.
And Michelle Obama is a trans woman.
Oh.
And I was just like, and you know, even if those things are true, I'm like, I wish those things are true. That'll be fucking cool.
It would be really
if
interesting.
our president was a sex worker, a gay sex worker, and his wife was a trans woman. I'm like, that's fucking cool. How does that affect any of foreign policies? Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay.
It's very funny. It has nothing to do with being president.
I'm like, that's awesome. Cool.
It does not make any sense.
At least, like, every other person in politics is paying for prostitutes. At least he's one of them.
I think it'd be cool if there was like an asteroid going to hit Earth, and like every politician came out and just said what was going on, and Obama was like, QAnon is right. Michelle is Mike.
And Hillary Clinton is a lizard.
Yeah. That would be funny if they opened up a third term and then Obama ran again and he was like, QAnon's right, Michelle is Mike. And that was like his running. I would vote.
Oh, and he would
fuck
be like,
out of
also
that.
I knew exactly what I was doing when I bombed Syria, and I killed a lot of people.
And then he's like, and I'm not born here. And everyone's just like, yeah.
Okay, we got 5 minutes left, but the gay thing. So after that, Fiora was
dude.
like, "We can't run the light, dude. Not after what happened to my last. Never mind." But so then my friend was like, "Hey, if you guys if you guys want to stay in Palm Springs or like some cute resort or whatever, I'll pay for you guys." So Greg and I got this hotel at this it's like a nude like resort in Palm Springs. And so we go there, we have like a great time, we get naked, we go into the hot tub. There's these two guys that are like 19 and 20 years old, ex-Mormons, who are in the hot tub with us.
That is just so hot.
And
that is just the hottest thing I've ever heard.
They're completely not my type at all. Like just two like hairless twinks who are just like,
ugh, that sounds so
spending
terrible.
$40,000 a year at college to major in graphic design. And Greg and I are like convincing these kids, we're like, drop out of college right now and just start watching YouTube for 3 hours a day, and you'll become a better graphic designer than getting $200,000 in debt. And we're like, literally drop out of college. Anyways, we have this conversation, and then they're like, we're going to go smoke weed. And I was like, okay, we're coming with you. And so, like, they're like, we have someone in our room sleeping, so we're just going to smoke out here, and we got to keep it quiet. And I was like, perfect. So we're just smoking weed, and we're all just, like, cracking each other up, laughing or whatever. And then, like, we hear someone woke up in their room. The lights go on. And I'm like, oh, bummer, we woke up the roommate. An 80-year-old obese man walks out butt naked and is like, into the two guys, like, let's just say like Jeremy and Craig. He's like, Jeremy and Craig, I need to talk to you right now.
Yes.
And so like the two 19-year-olds like walk over with their tails between their legs,
They're
and
in
are just
trouble.
and are just like, hey, we're really sorry about that. And he's like, don't let it happen again.
How are they gonna make it up to him?
And then and then I look over at them and I was like, and I laugh, like I'm stoned, but I'm just like,
right,
I'm like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And so I laugh, and then the guy looks me dead in the eye and he just goes, be careful.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just like,
you should have beat him up.
I was like, literally, you're standing out here with your chode telling me to be careful, and I could kill you if I wanted to.
Were you guys smoking weed naked?
Yeah.
Just
well, no. Greg and I think had bathrobes on, and they had
Mormon boys smoke weed with gay.
There was no sexual interact. Like we had no.
I can tell.
It was like it was hilarious, and then I was like, all right, let's go. And so Greg and I left, and I'm just like walking casually back, and then he stops me, and he's like, I'm sorry, did you not just see what happened?
Yeah, right.
Those kids are being we're just like, you know, we're stoned, but he was like, do we need to rescue those children? Like, what is going on? Anyways, it's something gay that we did. What's something pan you did?
Just think about that story.
Thinking about that story is pretty pan.
If I was at like a nude resort and then I saw two gay Mormon boys sitting nude in a hot tub, I'd be like, it's so nice to meet you. Stand up, let me see your penis. It's so nice to meet you. How are you doing? It's so nice to meet you. What does your penis look like? So good to meet you.
I mean, it was a hot tub with not a lot of bubbles. But
That's
I felt like
fun.
it felt like we were at WiSpa. Like we were just chilling. Like
right.
it wasn't
no,
like
totally.
there was no like we're not like
that's why it's funny that I'm
putting our hand under the hot tub or whatever. It was just like it was a fun hangout.
Yeah.
But they were like, "Oh, our roommate's sleeping," and you know, I'm thinking it's another 19-year-old. He's clearly paid for their whole trip and is like, "If you do not piss on me every night 6 times, like I'm going to leave your body in the desert."
They're hot girls. I get it.
They are hot girls.
They are hot
girls. Boys.
There's 2 of them. They can beat them up. I don't know, a pan thing I've been doing. I accidentally formed a big crush on this girl, but I'm making sure to be like, before I like even continue having a crush on this person, I'm like, well, let me make sure if I really like them, and like I'm not just lusting, you know. And then I hang out with them more, and then I find out that I like them more and more, and I do a lot of thinking about my attraction to be responsible, which is not very straight.
Yeah, it is.
It's very pan.
It's very pan, and also I would suggest not overthinking stuff. I think at the core, it's like if you enjoy spending time with someone, then you should, and they are like a healthy source of joy, then you should continue spending time with them. And it's as simple as that. You don't have to think about what happens when the iceberg hits and whatever.
Exactly. That's why
is it Greta Thunberg?
It's Greta Thunberg. And we have just, I don't know, we've just been like going to Flex and just hanging out with these Mormon boys. And she's like, they have stolen our future. And I'm like, she is so weird. I know. And then I go and
There's
suck
my
these.
quirky girlfriend asking for signatures at the gay sex spa.
And then I go and suck these Mormon guys' dicks. And then I come back and she's like
that.
yelling at a boomer. And she's
That
like,
is so sweet.
she's like, how dare you? And I'm like,
how dare you suck my boyfriend's dick? How dare you?
and I'm like, Greta, I just want to get out of here. And
she's like, we cannot be at Flex Spot because they're wasting 17 gallons of water per second.
She gets really fucking mad about it, and she's always like, give me a ride. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I don't want to admit, give me a ride. And I'm like, Greta,
I
I'm
cannot
still
let my followers know that I'm driving vehicle using gasoline.
Yeah. And I'm like, I bought you a Hummer. Like, I thought you could enjoy this. And she's like, I don't know. But she's like, I only give hand jobs, and I'm like, what does that have to do with the environment? Like,
Penetrative sex is using more of my carbon footprint.
Right.
And hand job and oral sex is a way to exercising the body.
Exactly. It is And then she's always like, I will not fuck Joe Biden. And I'm like, why would you fuck Joe Biden? I'm like, we don't know Joe Biden.
Big Mike. Give me Big Mike.
Yeah, she keeps saying that Michelle Obama's trans. And I'm like, Greta, like, stop.
It's crazy, but she's kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a lie, and you thinking that's a problem is transphobic, and it's like, it's this whole thing where I'm like, why don't you just like talk about like
Dude, this
climate
girl has
change?
You whipped.
I mean, I fucking love her so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, she's my rock, but like we do.
She's your iceberg.
She's my iceberg. We do it, and then like I don't know, like we took a tour of the Queen Mary. And she was like, this uses so much fuel. And I'm like, they don't even run it anymore. They just use it for like mystery dinner. And she's like, the mystery is how we're going to get out of climate. And I'm like, Greta, like we're having like a murder mystery dinner. We're having filet mignon. And she's just like so mad.
You're like, Greta, like the polar ice caps, you are melting my heart.
Ooh. I wonder what,
Let's stop.
is she still, doing shit?
I went to a Bjork concert, and it was
It's so funny how like
this is
they are unrelated, but when you said it, I'm like, that makes sense. That makes sense why you would say
concert
that.
With my boyfriend.
They're not from
his
the same
favorite
place,
artist.
right?
No,
Oh,
she's
she's
Swedish. Bjork is Icelandic, and the concert was so beautiful. And then then there's this choir singing this song. And it's like really gorgeous, and then in the choir they go, "How dare you!
Ah!
How dare you!" And then I turned to Greg, and Greg goes, "This is a dissertation. They're singing her speech that she gave at the UN." And I was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna go kill myself."
Dude, they should have Greta Thunberg come out at like
She was on a projector later in the show,
concert.
and she
That's
gave a
so
speech,
sick.
and it was like, "Hello."
A live speech?
No,
like
it was
pre-recorded?
pre-recorded, but
Okay.
it was like, "Hello, thank you for watching the artist who is known as Bjork. Today, it is our power to rescue the soldiers of the war that is called the Penguins."
There's
We gotta wrap it up.
This is the yeah.
This is it.
This
This
is
is
the
it.
oldest like old person thought I have. But when I see a child like Greta, who's pretty much my age, when I see a kid like her, I'm always like, you're too smart. And you need to be less smart. Like, I met a 12-year-old at a Super Bowl party, and she was like very professional. And she was like, and she was like talking about. She's like, "Oh, you do stand-up comedy?" She's like, "Have you done dry bar comedy?" Which is like a comedy.
I know what it is.
And I'm just sort of like,
if you've done it, you should kill yourself.
and I was like, "Can you like talk to me about like BMX or something?" You know what I mean? Like, because I'm not as smart as you right now, and I'm probably intimidated. But like, you just. They'll just like, when people are like, "Oh, this is Henry. He loves mathematics." And you're just like, Henry, dude, like, chill out. Like, have a Capri Sun.
Right, like, just like Jessica Alba and
Yeah.
be a fucking dickhead.
Because I'm really into just, like, not trying to be smart anymore.
Also, Jessica Alba is now, like, 75 years old. Like, that would not be, like,
her and Greta Thunberg are the same age.
You're right.
But I do think Greta Thunberg should come out at every concert. I think, like, there's, like, a Marshmello DJ set. It's like... and then instead of dropping the music, just stops, and then she just walks out from behind stage, and
Instead
she's
of
like,
dropping the music,
and then she doesn't even do it.
she drops from the ceiling.
she and then just gets up and she's like, "How dare you!" And everyone's like, "Grr!"
How dare you?
Yeah, and people are like rolling on Molly, and they're like, "She's gonna save the world." I think it'd be pretty
She's
cool.
profusely crying. All right, well, thank you so much for listening, and say hi to Greta.
Dan's kicked off the podcast. Thank you.
Bye.